Hi, I'm Charles with Anycap. The story begins as we learn about a gigantic floating fortress that appeared out of nowhere. Its appearance marked the beginning of the never-ending war between humans and monsters. We are then introduced to the highest-ranked divine dragon rangers called the Dragon Keepers. The monsters arrived in the floating fortress 13 years ago, and there has been a weekly Sunday showdown between the keepers and the monsters ever since. It's a huge event, and crowds of people come to watch every week. A reporter gets everyone excited as he explains that the rangers are on high alert. This is because monster experts predict that the monster army will be deploying their secret weapon in today's showdown. The Red Keeper appears to greet everyone, and the news reporter makes sure to catch it on camera. Red is the chief of the Dragon Force, and the Dragon Keeper's reliable leader. The entire event is a huge spectacle, and people all over the world tune in to watch. In the area below the fortress, our protagonist is told that this place will soon turn into a battlefield, and the rangers will do their best to ensure his safety. Our boy isn't impressed by their little protector routine, as he looks around and thinks about how this place looks more like a shopping mall than a battlefield. It's pretty clear to him that there aren't many risks, especially since there haven't been any civilian casualties in years. The girl ranger just admits that it's part of their protocol to say what they just said. Our boy admires them for being part of the ranger force at such a young age, but he is told that he can join too. It's actually highly encouraged, and getting accepted into the ranger force isn't that hard. However, becoming a dragon keeper is a completely different story. Our boy doesn't seem too interested at first, but the girl ranger tells him that it's up to him, and he gets an intense feeling. With that over, he goes to watch the battle, and enters the floating fortress's underpass called Amanagawa City. In the arena, the monsters called Dusters teleport out of the fortress, and their leader this time is a giant tiger. The crowd erupts ready to see a fight, and they mock the monsters for never learning their lesson and always coming back every week. They humiliate the monsters and throw trash onto them while telling them that they will lose. Just then, the Dragon Keepers arrive, and Red Keeper declares that the monsters will never have their way. The planet belongs to the humans, and they will protect it from monsters like them. The Dragon Keepers strike a pose, and the crowd screams out for their saviors. The monster leader explains that he's a monster born from all the collective grudges of the tigers in this world. He vows that it's time for the stupid surface dwellers to get what they deserve, and he will bring chaos to this world. The crowd becomes concerned, and the monster speaks to them next. He declares that this isn't some kind of zoo for them to be enjoying, and he sends his dusters to attack the crowd. Luckily for the citizens, the rangers are in charge of protecting them. Suzuki is the girl from before, and she tells Sakurama to get the people to safety. The monster leader unleashes a powerful attack and sends the Dragon Keepers flying. The crowd has gone silent, and the leader is now the one mocking the keepers. Red Keeper points out that they have never fought such a powerful monster before, but Green Keeper takes the lead since strength is his specialty. He crushes the leader with a boulder and strikes his own hero pose. Just then, everyone is shocked as the monster tiger destroys the boulder and laughs like a maniac. The crowd has gotten pretty terrified at this point. They can tell that it's going to take way more than that to defeat this monster, and they wonder why the keepers aren't using the divine artifact. The tiger declares that he is invincible, and he transforms into the most dangerous weapon in anime, Truck-kun. The keepers team up to stop it, but they are no match for the tiger-Truck-kun hybrid. The crowd can't believe what they are witnessing, and they begin to wonder if humanity is really done for this time. The tiger celebrates as the crowd determines that he's too strong, but one boy yells out and tells the Dragon Keepers not to lose. This is all it takes as the keepers begin to stand up, and they proclaim that they cannot lose, not as long as there is someone left to protect. The kid is amazed by his heroes, and they declare that they will stand up as many times as it takes to win. One of the dusters is surprised to see that they're going to use the divine artifact so soon, and he instructs the other dusters to group up. They all then get ready for one of their classic routines. The keepers will blast them back to the fortress, where they will simply reconstruct themselves. The dusters can't wait to hear their leader's loser speech afterwards, but the dummy forgot to prepare one. The one they call Fighter D makes a suggestion, but his buddy is shocked since Fighter D wasn't supposed to be on shift for this battle. Their little argument is interrupted though, when the keepers are ready to fire at them. Everyone prepares to get blasted away, but Fighter D is sick of putting up the same act every week. He walks towards the keepers as they fire the divine artifact, and everyone tries to stop him. He declares that he is done with this fake pretense, and the weapon causes a huge explosion. The crowd cheers for the Keeper's victory, and the Red Keeper declares that it's time for commercials. We then get a look at what was going on 1 hour earlier inside the monster's fortress. The Dusters were panicking as they only had an hour left to come up with this week's monster. Coming up with a new monster idea every week is really difficult, and some of them have even given up. A radio broadcast talks about the weekly battle, so they try to get some ideas from there, but it's no hope. The Dusters then talk about how unfortunate their situation is. Their floating fortress fell to the Keepers just 1 year after they arrived on the planet, and all their monster bosses were wiped out. A few Dusters were all that remained, but they are just foot soldiers, and they know that there isn't much they can do on their own. They are running out of time, so Fighter G jumps into action and comes up with an idea for a super strong monster with bulging muscles. The impressive idea is rejected by the calmest of the Dusters, and he reminds the others that abstract monster ideas don't leave lasting impressions on the audience. It's going to lose the moment it steps on stage, so the monsters need to be more memorable. This calm Duster is Fighter A, and the others remind him that they don't have time to worry about details. It's all pretty frustrating for the group of foot soldiers, since they wouldn't be in this mess if their bosses were still around. The female Fighter L comes up with an idea, but it just ends up being a cute cat monster. She tries to convince the others by pointing out that the surface dwellers will love it, but Fighter A points out that they aren't supposed to love it. They need to create a big bad monster that strikes fear into little kids, so Fighter L tries to change it into a lion. This gets rejected as well though, since they already used a lion 7 years ago. Fighter D is the next to speak up, and he reveals that they haven't used a tiger yet. The others think it would be pretty cool to lose with a tiger, but Fighter D gets furious that they're already thinking about losing. He reminds them that they are monsters, and they're supposed to take down anyone that gets in their way, including the Dragon Keepers. He refuses to give up on trying to win, but the others tell him to quiet down so they can listen to the broadcast. Fighter D tells them not to listen to that garbage, since it's just a bunch of stuff made to please the surface dwellers. Fighter D doesn't want them to create a monster that will just be defeated. He thinks they should be using this time to come up with a strategy to win. He says that this will be the only way they will be able to complete the mission, but the others don't even remember what their mission was. Fighter D reminds them that it's world domination. Their leaders might be gone, but he thinks they're still supposed to fight to make this world theirs. Fighter D tries to inspire them with his speech, but they all just laugh at him. They credit him for being ambitious, but they still mock his goal, so Fighter D fights them all. Afterwards, Fighter F tells him to calm down. Fighter D wonders why he isn't more mad, so F tells them that they have resigned themselves to being satisfied with what they have now. They have fought and lost against the Keepers 1,000 times, so he should be used to it by now. Fighter D isn't though, and points out that it's only been 998 times. It doesn't matter to Fighter F, as he explains that they lost the moment their bosses were exterminated. They now invade the planet every week, but the real goal is to not let the civilians know that it's all just an act. This is simply a condition for the truce they made on the day their bosses were exterminated. They might not even be considered monsters anymore, so it's simply time for Fighter D to accept that. The monsters decide to go with the tiger idea, so they ask which Duster is good at acting as a tiger. Fighter Z is willing to give it a try, so they reference the animal encyclopedia that the Rangers gave them to get an idea of what it's supposed to look like. Fighter Z transforms into the tiger monster, so they start trying to think of a name for it. Fighter D is sure that he's the best transformer, but he explains that he isn't on today's shift. F wonders where he has been going to lately, but D is focused on something else. He declares that he will never volunteer as boss, not if they are just meant to be defeated. F then tells D about something that happened in the last battle. He was severely injured, and he saw a small surface dweller nearby. The Dusters are clearly the enemy of humanity, but this small surface dweller still encouraged F to do his best. It didn't make any sense, but F admits that hearing it didn't feel half bad. F feels like, for those that don't know the truth, he has to do his best. The Dusters make the Rangers stand out, and the audience gets really excited. If that is their purpose now, then it doesn't matter to F if they lose, he will just do his best to play the perfect monster. Fighter D clearly does not feel the same way. Back to the present, the Dusters have just been hit by the Rangers' ultimate technique called the Dragon's Breath. Everyone celebrates as the future of humanity has once again been protected. The Keepers are all shocked though, when one Duster remains standing. It's Fighter D, and he points out that just because they're immortal, that doesn't mean that the Keepers can just do whatever they want to them. They can still feel pain, and monsters aren't just meant to take a beating. Fighter D knows full well that they're just putting up an act for the citizens, but they're just repeating the same thing over and over again every week. He wonders if the keepers are really satisfied with that, and thinks that they should want more. Fighter D suggests that they change things up a bit, and he declares that the monsters should win this time. The keepers point out that this isn't what they agreed to, and they tell him that he still has time to make it back to the fortress. Fighter D is furious though, and decides that it's time to finally end the rigged games. He vows to take them down with a real fight, and ferociously charges right at them. This charge isn't as dramatic as he would like though, as Fighter D is really just running at them. The keepers mock him, but Red knows just what to do. He puts on a good show, and declares that this monster is a formidable opponent. A few civilians are glad to finally see a monster with some guts, and one kid even tells him to do his best. Fighter D just thinks about telling them to shut up, since he assumes that they just want to see a trash mob get beaten up pathetically. The civilians always upset him, since they're obviously just looking down on him. He vows to make their stupid ignorant faces twitch with fear, and declares that he is a proud monster. Fighter D attacks the Red Keeper, but Red just tells him that he did a good job today. This isn't the kind of place for his kind to shine though, so Red just tells him to shut up and lose like he is supposed to. Red declares that he is justice and slices Fighter D in half. The other keepers humiliate him even more by firing their weapon at him, and the crowd erupts with cheer. Fighter D has had enough and realizes that he doesn't even look like a bad guy anymore. In the fortress, the Dusters point out that they have gone through 999 battles, and they were all losses. Fighter D hasn't returned yet, but this isn't very surprising. Many like him have run off because they couldn't stand what they are doing. For the rest of them though, doing what the humans tell them to do is the only way for them to survive. Down below, we see that Fighter D has chosen a different path. He has concluded that they are not even fit to be villains. Nothing has changed, and they will just continue to be slaves for the humans. However, Fighter D is sick of staying silent and doing their bidding. He is completely enraged and slowly transforms himself into a human. Just then, Suzukiri shows up and recognizes him as the guy she met earlier. Our protagonist pretends that he was just trying to get a better view of the fight, and she wonders what he thought about the battle. D explains that it was amazing to see the keepers up close, as they are really strong. Their strength has really inspired him, so he says that he wants to be just like them. Suzukiri assumes that this means he wants to join the Rangers, and D mischievously states that it sounds like a great idea. It's such a good idea that he's even considering taking the recruitment exam. There seems to be some strange tension, as Suzukiri's glad to see him so fired up about it. D vows to take them down and defeat all his enemies, as we see that he's looking right at a billboard of the keepers. Sometime later, we see D running laps. He gets distracted by a ranger with weird hair, and he thinks about how these small fry rangers don't know that the battle against the monsters are just a show. D refocuses though, and reminds himself why he infiltrated the enemy's stronghold. It's so he can take out the dragon keepers that wiped out his bosses. A look back shows that D arrived at the ranger headquarters in search of the dragon keepers. The receptionist wasn't very helpful, as she explained that the keepers weren't there. Just then, Sakurama and Suzukiri show up, excited that he has come to take the recruitment exam. Suzukiri points out that D could still fail the exam, but Sakurama believes in him. Sakurama gets a little too close, causing D's human disguise to crack. Fighters have weaker bodies compared to surface dwellers, and Suzukiri looks like she might be staring right at the crack. D fears that she might have figured out his secret, but she just invites him to go eat lunch. D is relieved that they haven't figured out that he is a monster, and thinks about how gullible the surface dwellers are. Back in the fortress, the Dusters enjoy their free time with some games, but one of them warns that the Dragon Keepers have arrived. Red Keeper tells them not to be so nervous, as he is not there to fight, and reminds them that they are comrades who formed a truce agreement. He insists that the Dusters smile, but Blue Keeper points out that this isn't the time to smile, and reminds him that one of the Dusters betrayed them. He suspects that all the Dusters were in on it, but Fighter A explains that Fighter D did it on his own. Blue still doesn't trust them, and demands that Fighter D step forward. Fighter A explains that D never returned after the last battle, but Blue suspects that they are hiding him. He decides that Fighter A will be punished in his place, but the Civil Red Keeper points out that the Dusters were betrayed by Fighter D as well. They are suffering the same way they are, and the only person at fault is Fighter D. Blue accepts his decision, and just asks that they be informed when Fighter D returns. Red Keeper points out that they have all been partners for over a decade, but due to recent events, they have decided to take some safety measures to prevent another betrayal. He introduces Shinta and Eren, 2 Blue Squadron members that will be stationed at the fortress along with their men. The Dusters will live under their supervision from now on and take orders from them when needed. Fighter C stands up against the tyrannical behavior and reminds the Keepers that the fortress belongs to them. The other Dusters try to calm him down, but he doesn't listen, so the Blue Keeper silences him. He promises to end his life if he doesn't stop, so Fighter A begs for forgiveness to protect C. Red is glad that they have agreed, since the weak should always obey the strong and not fight back. He believes that conflicts only happen when one party doesn't understand their place. Red declares that they are one step closer to world peace and gives a demonstration of his immense power. This is clearly a threat, and Red declares that traitors will be ended relentlessly, just like they did to the Dusters' bosses. Fighter F realizes that he can never do what D did. Instead, he will just do as the Keepers tell him and live on in shame. He does get a bit upset though, and wonders if this is really all he can do. Back with D, he walks himself through the steps to eating a steak just like a human would. Because D was asking, Suzukiri explains that the Dragon Keepers are rarely at the headquarters. They are usually in their individual garrisons that are spread out across Amanagawa City. Sakurama explains that rangers like them have a lot of duties other than fighting Dusters. They help clean up the city and even help police solve crimes. D figures that this would just make things more devastating for them if they found out that the battle with monsters is just an act. Saying it out loud was a terrible mistake, but luckily Suzukiri just thinks he's talking about a conspiracy video. Someone made a video saying it was all a ploy made up by the Rangers, so our boy just goes along with it. D can't believe that he made such a stupid mistake, but this at least confirms that the Rangers don't know what's really going on. Just then, D gets a glimpse of just how popular the Rangers are. One kid thanks them for saving them, and the restaurant even gives them free food. Sakurama declares that he is proud to be a member of the Ranger Force, but D's hate for them only grows. He thinks about how easy their life is, and how food must taste great when they have people showering them with praise. Things are completely different in the fortress though, since they don't even get to look at delicious food like what they eat on the surface. The Rangers head back to do their duties, and D overhears that Suzukiri is going to the Red Garrison. D comes up with an idea and calls the Ranger fan over to look at the picture he took. D reminds himself to stay cool-minded and not be so hasty. While he thinks about how Red told him to keep his mouth shut and lose like he is supposed to, D also reminds himself that he is cold-blooded and a proud monster. He takes a good look at the picture of Sakurama and shockingly transforms himself into him right there. The kid is the only one that noticed, and D just thanks the server for the food. Moments later, Suzukiri is surprised that Sakurama decided to come with her to the Red Garrison. It's really D, so he just plays it off and thinks about how he's just there to scout the area. D reminds himself to keep his cool as we see that he is carrying a weapon, and he asks if he could deliver a letter to the Red Keeper. D fears that she might be suspicious of him, but luckily she just agrees to let him. Suzukiri uses her status as a Yellow Squadron member to open the entrance, and D assures himself that he can accomplish his mission. The second the Red Keeper shows an opening, D will go right for his head. The only problem is that D has only met the Red Keeper in battle, so he doesn't know if he wears his mask outside of combat. This proves to be a big problem as there are a bunch of Red members inside, and D can't tell if one of them is the Red Keeper. D doesn't get a chance to ask, as the guys just wonder what a colorless ranger like Sakurama is doing there. D explains that he has business with the Red Keeper, so one guy says that he is him. D is sure that he can take his life from this range, but Suzukiri reveals that this is just some guy named Tokita. The guy admits that it was just a joke, but he wonders what D was planning to do. D fears that he has been caught and tries to explain that he has a letter that needs to be delivered. Tokita picks on him as he knows the real Sakurama, but luckily Suzukiri breaks it up. She gives him the letter to give to the Red Keeper, and Tokita tells Suzukiri that she should join the Red Squadron. She is not able to shine in the Yellow Squadron because it focuses on research and development. Suzukiri likes the flexibility it gives her, but Tokita points out that the Red Squadron is much better since they specialize in monster extermination. He thinks that every ranger dreams of defeating monsters, and that would even be true for colorless independent ones like Sakurama. Just then, D becomes enraged when he remembers all their faces from the battlefield. Luckily, Suzukiri changes the subject so they can leave. D can only hold his head down as they leave, and the Red Squadron brags about how many monsters they eliminated. D once again reminds himself that he is cool-headed. He is not running away, he is just retreating for now. D becomes upset when he realizes that it's the same thing, and it's what he has always done. Just then, D is shocked when he sees a picture of what the Red Keeper looks like, and even more surprised when he appears to introduce himself as Sosei. D completely freezes in front of him, and tells himself to move, as there's no point in holding back. Luckily, Suzukiri just says that he is frozen from the shock of seeing his idol, and drags him away. D stops though to congratulate Sosei on his victory against the monsters, and warns him that the monsters are so despicable that they might try something. Sosei is glad to have rangers like him watching his back, and they part ways. Outside, Suzukiri explains that she got real nervous when he started talking to Sosei. Suzukiri tells him to give her the knife, so he does, and D explains that he didn't even get to use it. Our absent-minded protagonist doesn't remember telling her about the knife, and she shockingly uses it to cut him. Surprisingly, she tells him that he needs to be more careful, or else he will be exposed immediately, since he is so weak. Suzukiri reveals to Fighter D that she has been covering for him the entire day. She was impressed that he was able to stay so calm, but points out that the Red Keeper would have easily turned the tables on him if he tried anything. D wonders just who the heck she is, so she explains that she is his enemy. D tries to fight her, but she easily slices him up over and over again. D decides that they should just talk instead, so Suzukiri reveals that she has a favor to ask. She wants them to work together, and she promises to teach him how to defeat the Rangers. After she teaches him, this evil girl wants them to destroy the Ranger force together. Just then, the real Sakurama shows up, and our boy has changed back to his human form. Sakurama reveals that a monster has appeared, but this is really strange since it's not Sunday. D wonders what is going on, and Suzukiri is shocked when he disappears. Elsewhere, we see that the monster that has appeared is Fighter F. Fighter F is chased by the Red Squadron, and D arrives to wonder what he is thinking. Tokita manages to land a headshot on F, and asks him not to put up a fight by regenerating over and over again. F is furious, but he explains that he couldn't find who he was looking for, so he will just head back to the fortress. Just then, a voice declares that he won't be allowed to go back. It's Sosei, and he says that it's time for him to transform into the Red Keeper. Red reminds F that they just gave the Dusters a warning, and he's disappointed to see that he's already betraying them. D is then shocked when Red pulls out his divine artifact, the only thing that can eliminate a Duster permanently. Red acknowledges that F has died multiple times, but today he will learn what true death is like. He declares that villains will always be villains, and they simply need to be purged by justice. Red then activates his divine artifact called Red Salamandra. In the face of this powerful attack, F concedes that this was always meant to happen, as he is just a simple fighter. He wonders where D is and what he is trying to do. In this moment, F can't help but agree with the Red Keeper. Fighters like him might try to bask in the cheers of the civilians, but it doesn't change the fact that they are villains trying to invade the surface. They are the monster army, so F does his part and demands that the Red Keeper bring it on. D calls out to his friend, but it's no use as the divine artifact's attack strikes him directly, consuming him in its flames. Red is pleased with himself as he declares that it was his ultimate technique. We can still hear F's voice as he apologizes to D for fighting and losing. However, compared to the past 13 meaningless years of doing nothing, he actually feels good today. D can only stare at what's left of his friend, and Sakurama is shocked by what they see because it was nothing like the other divine artifacts that they have seen. We then see what happened 12 years ago after the monster's bosses were defeated. The fighters were given two choices. They could keep fighting until only the winner remains, or they could make a deal with the Dragon Keepers and join them. With the blood of their bosses on his mask, Red insisted that they put their differences aside so they could work hand in hand. Back to the present, D is clearly upset, so Sakurama wonders if the fighter was someone he knew, and he apologizes for D's loss. D questions what he's talking about, but Sakurama just declares that monsters like him have no chance of winning, and he insists that D stop any evil doings he's planning to do. D is shocked, so Sakurama reveals that he overheard his conversation with Suzukiri. Sakurama pleads for him to stop fighting, since justice will always prevail anyway. D becomes furious and points out that for the past 12 years, the monsters have been forced to play along with their charade. Fighter D is sick and tired of it, so he declares that he will put an end to the messed up organization behind it all because he is a proud monster. Just then, Sakurama surprisingly declares that D has passed the recruitment exam, and he will join them as a fellow ranger. Sakurama believes that it's completely normal to be dissatisfied with this imperfect world they live in. He wants to change it from within, so they can create a society where humans and monsters coexist. However, he is surprised when D refuses his offer to work together. D hates him and points out that they are enemies. As he leaves, D tells him never to talk to him again, and just to add some insult, he tells Sakurama that he is not fit to be a ranger. Later, Suzukiri is glad that D has come to her, but he explains that he is just there to learn how to defeat the rangers. Once he is done using her, he will cut all ties with her. D insincerely apologizes for the harsh words, but he explains that he is a monster. Suzukiri is not impressed with the tough guy act, so she slices D's head off. D thinks she is crazy for doing this where anyone can see, and he is right. She points out that people would lose their minds if they found out that a monster was walking around in the streets. This is a clear threat to expose him, so she hopes that he understands his situation now. This crazy girl then reveals that the key to defeating the rangers lies in the divine artifacts. There are 5 different divine artifacts. They are transformation items for the Dragon Keepers, created to fight monsters. They are also cheat items that grant the user divine powers. She points out that the Ranger Force is not as powerful as it seems. It's an incomplete organization that relies heavily on the top 5 members. If they just poke at the imbalance, then it might just crumble easier than they suspect. It's pretty clear that she wants to do something to the divine artifacts, but since they are so important, Dee knows that they will be heavily protected. He points out that they can't just take them while the Keepers are sleeping, so she reveals that there is a moment when the Keepers must leave their divine artifacts. Shockingly, this moment is the Sunday Showdown. The divine artifacts are too important to bring to a fake battle. The next Sunday Showdown arrives, and we see that D is trying to transform himself into the Red Keeper just using a picture of him. Suzukiri is impressed to see that fighters are capable of such things, and decides that they can't be underestimated. D silences her as he points out that he needs more focus for unfamiliar faces. She wonders why monsters don't use this ability more often to spy on the humans, so D explains that there are just some things that they aren't good at mimicking. D is a rare exception, as he has a talent for mimicking surface dwellers. Suzukiri is getting tired of waiting, so she asks D to turn into a chair in the meantime. D gets annoyed, so he must tell her to quiet down again. She gets real serious and points out that this special skill of his could change the entire battle. Moments later, we see that D has successfully transformed into the Red Keeper. Suzukiri instructs him on where to find the divine artifacts, but she annoys him to no end with how casual she's being. Worst of all though, she never answers important questions. He tries to ask her why she is helping the monsters, so she just brings up teenage drama shows. She explains that the trope always has the dull girl and the hottest guy in school get together. Rivals appear throughout the story, but in the end the original couple always ends up together. D is completely confused, so she goes on to say that she just feels bad for the rivals. The main characters always end up together in the end, so she can never cheer for them. D is bored out of his mind, but she points out that this is the same reason why she wants to help Fighter D. D is glad to see that everyone is falling for his disguise, and Suzukiri tells him that he's just moments away from finding the artifacts. However, just then he runs into Tokita, who is surprised to see that Red has returned so soon. D is stunned at first, but he reminds himself that he can't back down, as he is done running away. He calmly asserts that he needs to use the divine artifact to transform again, so Tokita just gets out of his way. However, Tokita seems to suspect something. He says that he is impressed with how Red is able to deal with trash mobs every week, which upsets D, but Suzukiri reminds him to remain calm. D calmly states that the trash mobs are still monsters, so they can't be underestimated. D uses his ability to unlock the entrance, but Tokita explains that he doesn't care about underestimating them, he's just glad to have a justified reason to eliminate the monsters every week. D keeps his cool as he says that he wants Tokita to keep that attitude, and he enters the room. Inside, D is shocked that Red just left his divine artifact out in the open. He wonders if it's a trap, but determines that this is just what Suzukiri meant when she said that the Rangers are incomplete. Red doesn't even see the monsters as threats, so D is furious that he would look down upon them that way. D vows to make him pay and takes hold of the divine artifact. D finally holds the item that has been tormenting them for years, but just then he is shot by Tokita. Tokita realized that Red smelled different, and he's glad to see that he was right. This Red is an imposter. D is shocked that he would shoot him over a smell, but Tokita points out that the real Red Keeper would never have fallen for a surprise attack. D tries to warn Tokita to stop, but Tokita just keeps shooting him. Tokita explains that the monsters creep him out. They are able to regenerate, which probably makes them think they can win the battle one day, but Tokita points out that this is why they are weak. Humans will always die someday, so the fear of death makes them grow. Tokita lets out a maniacal laugh as he is done shooting D, and he declares that it's time to end him. He takes hold of the divine artifact, and D is shocked that someone other than a keeper can use one. This will actually be Tokita's first time using one, but he declares that he will gladly test it out on D. D pleads for him not to as he doesn't want to die, but Tokita just mocks him for having those be his final words. D explains that he actually has more to say and reveals that he has a bunch of dynamite. Tokita wishes he would have said that first, but D points out that all that shooting Tokita didn't let him say anything. D threatens to blow up the entire place, so Tokita puts on the divine artifact. The tables have completely turned as Tokita begs for his life now, and he asks D not to play dirty. D reminds him that the monsters came to achieve world domination. He lights a match and declares that he's giving Tokita the fear of death that humans like so much. Tokita is indeed afraid as he begs him to stop, so D surprisingly just hits him with a golf club and knocks him out. Afterwards, D makes his escape and Suzukiri compliments him on his strength. He did a great job, so she is glad that she chose the right person to team up with. D has heard enough though and demands that she stop praising him. D thinks about how he finally managed to win for once, but for some reason he's really irritated. Suzukiri thinks she should reward him after he reaches the rooftop, but D points out that he doesn't need a reward. Just then, D explains that he can't talk right now as he is busy, and we see that it's because he has been found by the Red Keeper. D wonders what he's doing there and points out that he should be fighting monsters. Red says that this is not an issue because there is one in front of him right now. He explains that this can all end with D returning the divine artifact and he can just disappear after. D refuses and just attacks Red, but all his attacks are easily dodged. D furiously tells him to stop showing off, but Red is clearly just toying with him. Red is surprised when D sends his hand into the sky and uses regeneration to launch a metal sphere at Red. However, D is then the one to be shocked when Red just uses a simple pipe to send it right back at him. The divine artifact and D's arm go flying off the roof, so D jumps after them. Red is glad to see that D managed to grab the divine artifact, but D points out that he had to let his left arm fall to do it. Red commends him for prioritizing the divine artifact over his own arm, but he insults D's appearance as he now just looks like a monster again. He points out that D has failed, and he calls him a loser. D is furious as he points out that he's doing pretty well for a weak monster. He explains that he's using his full power, so he demands that Red stop holding back. Red lets out an evil laugh and explains that he has no reason to defeat a mere fighter when there's no audience to see it. He reminds D that he has a role to play just as a news helicopter appears. The reporter declares that Red has chased down a monster that escaped from the arena. It turns out that Red was just waiting for the cameras to arrive, so now that they have, he is ready to go all out. He explains that hundreds of thousands of people are watching their TV, excited to see D lose. They are waiting to see him die pathetically as his limbs scatter everywhere. Red knows just how to humiliate D as he points out that his entire life has been a disgrace, so he can at least do the entire world a favor and die for their entertainment. D isn't like the other fighters though, as he is sick of being ridiculed. He declares that instead of letting them watch him die, he will shock the crowd when they watch a weak fighter defeat the leader of the Rangers. Just then, D is surprised when Red collapses to the floor, and he claims that it's because the injury he received when fighting the tiger monster. Red points out that D is just a small fry, so there was no chance he would get to fight him one-on-one anyway. Just then, the blue keeper knocks out our boy, and the other keepers show up as well. Red was just acting for the cameras, but it doesn't stop there. He declares that he and his comrades protect everyone on the planet. The reporter eats it all up and says that this is going to be a legendary battle. Red then states that they won't stop defending, so the monster should give up on invading. But D has had enough of his little act and just demands that the Ranger Force die. Yellow Keeper is glad that only one fighter is left before he can go home, but Pink points out that this is the same stray fighter from the week before. Red can't tell them apart, so he can't remember them, but if it's true, then this is the perfect time to eliminate the fighter that broke the truce. Red commands Blue to eliminate D with his artifact, and to make it look flashy. Yellow points out that Red just used his divine artifact to eliminate a fighter the other day, so he is worried that they might be getting into a routine that the viewers will get bored of. They worry that their act might be getting stale, since instead of ending their battles with powerful bosses, they have been ending their battles with random weak fighters. The Greenkeeper has a suggestion and tells Red a way they can change the plot of today's show to make things more interesting. Red allows it, so Green begins putting on a show. He declares that the Keepers are impressed with D's courage, and it would be a waste to just let someone like him rot away in the monster army. Instead, Green suggests that D surrenders and allows himself to be captured. The reporter excitedly leans into the shocking turn of events and declares that this has never happened in the entire 13-year history of the Sunday Showdown. Red assures D that he will be safe, but D deadpans that he doesn't want that. Red accepts his decision and just tells Blue to end his life, so Blue uses his divine artifact on fighter D. In the flashy fashion that Red wanted, this causes D's body to expand and float into the air. In his last moments, D thinks about how this won't just end with his death, as he is sure that someone else will eventually stand against the Keepers just like he did. As his end comes near, fighter D declares that they will remember him. Red coldly reminds him that he can't remember fighters, and Blue ends his life. The reporter says that the fight is over, continuing the Keepers' victory streak, and humanity's peace has once again been protected. The Keepers argue about how their pose wasn't done perfectly, but Yellow doesn't think they should be fighting over that. Red points out that it's okay, since they must always appear cool. If not, they will just look like losers. Red goes to retrieve his divine artifact, and thinks about how the others were right. They have been ending too many fights with just random fighters. They need to end against stronger opponents, since a trash mob is 100 years too early to be causing trouble for them. Red reaches for his divine artifact, but he is shocked when it begins to fall apart. His shock turns to horror when he realizes that D switched his left arm with the divine artifact when he jumped off the building. Elsewhere, we see that Suzukiri has Red's real divine artifact. She's disappointed that fighter D is dead, but she thanks him for his sacrifice. It won't be in vain, as she declares that there are only 4 divine artifacts left. Sometime later, all the Keepers meet up, and they each have a junior member of their squadron with them. The Keepers are all senior first ranks of their respective squadrons, and this is the first time in quite a while that they're having a sacred banquet. Having their juniors there is a big deal, so Yellow wonders if there's going to be a big change. They're waiting for the Yellow Squadron's junior, and shockingly we see that this is Suzukiri. Blue is upset that Suzukiri isn't apologizing for being late, but Yellow Keeper explains that she just does things at her own pace. Blue gets furious when Suzukiri doesn't say a single word, and she doesn't like how he called her Yellow Keeper's mistress. She points out that this must be how he sees his own junior, but this just gets Blue even more upset. Blue's junior named Izome wants him to watch his tone, but this just makes them argue. Just then, all the commotion is put to a halt by the Ranger Force mascot named Draggy-kun. Red gets everyone's attention, and he reminds Suzukiri about what she must do when she has done something wrong. She apologizes for being late, so Red declares that it's time to get down to business. He allows everyone to eat while he talks. Red says that he might have made a big mistake, and he reveals that he thinks his divine artifact was stolen. Everyone is shocked, and Red says that he thinks the fighter he eliminated earlier was the one that took it. Red can't transform without the divine artifact, so he's wearing the fake suit he wears for the Sunday Showdowns. The others can't believe that a mere fighter was able to accomplish this, and they even forgot that fighters were capable of betrayal since they have been faking the battles for 12 years now. They wonder if this fighter hid the divine artifact somewhere before being eliminated, but the crazy Suzukiri mentions the possibility that he could have given it to someone else. Red is infuriated by this thought and vows to bring down the hammer of justice upon whoever that someone might be. Just then, Red's junior named Jin declares that Red should take responsibility for this major blunder. He has committed a big mistake, so he questions if Red still intends on remaining a senior first rank. Pink tries to calm him down as they are in a state of emergency, but Jin points out that Red put them in this position. The divine artifacts are the last hope that protects humans from monsters. Losing one is unforgivable, so Jin declares that Red should resign from his position as a Dragon Keeper. Suzukiri doesn't say a word, but thinks about how Jin is a hypocrite. Jin was the one that leaked information on the divine artifact, and his deceptive behavior makes her hate the adult world. Just then, everyone is shocked when Red agrees with everything Jin said. Red would be glad to hand the position over to Jin, so Jin declares that he has worked towards this goal his entire life. He vows to protect peace in a way that's different from Red's. Red explains that in justice lies strength, and Jin is caught off guard when Red smashes him into a wall. Red points out that it's pretty obvious that Jin isn't stronger than him, so him being the Red Keeper just won't work. Just then, Green tries to stop Red from going further, but it's too late and we see that someone is listening. Red casually goes back to eating while he finishes his story, but it's clear that Jin is no longer alive. Suzukiri doesn't say anything, but she thinks about how them being allies of justice is just not true. Just then, Blue reveals that something is bothering him. Azome says that she lost her appetite as well, but Blue explains that that's not it. Elsewhere, we see that the person that was listening is Sakurama. He is watching a video of when Fighter D was eliminated, and he states that he will gamble everything on this explosion. Moments later, Blue returns to the rooftop with his subordinate named Hikaru. He wants them to assume a worst case scenario where the fighter they eliminated actually survived and escaped with Red's divine artifact. If this was the case, then the fighter either got drawn into the floating fortress or he was carried away by the wind. Blue will check the fortress, and he has Hikaru calculate the wind's direction so he can try and trace the fighter's location. In a nearby forest, we see that Fighter D is actually still alive. He only made it look like he was eliminated by using the dynamite Suzukiri gave him. He is still in bad shape though, as the hole in his stomach won't close, so he is amazed by the power of the divine artifacts. D composes himself and declares that he hasn't lost yet. He vows to put an end to the Rangers and promises that he will achieve world domination. Just then, Sakurama arrives and he reveals to Fighter D that he wants to assist him. D attacks him as he reminds Sakurama that he is a monster, but Sakurama just thinks he's too hot-headed. Unfortunately, D is in a great deal of pain and can't move properly because of the hole in his stomach. Sakurama wants to try some first aid on him, but D hates the idea of being taken care of by a ranger. Sakurama points out that D is able to transform his face, so surely he should be able to heal himself. After some antagonizing by Sakurama, D transfers part of his arm to his stomach and closes the hole. Sakurama is staring a little too hard for D's liking, but Sakurama explains that he's just amazed. This is a power beyond human understanding, and he considers it a miracle. Just then, he is even more amazed when D transforms his hand into a cat. D explains that this isn't some kind of circus act, but he then asks Sakurama if he has any requests. He wants to see his own face, so D transforms his hand into Sakurama's head. Sakurama then asks him to make a mask, so D does, and Sakurama declares that he is a fighter now too. D gets furious and points out that Sakurama isn't good enough to be one of them, since he probably wouldn't be able to stand the fear of being blown up all the time. D is ready for him to leave as he is still in a lot of pain, but Sakurama says that he wants to learn more about Fighter D. He also wants D to learn about him, but D refuses. Sakurama begins explaining his childhood, so D is disappointed that the guy's just going to keep talking no matter what. Sakurama explains that he has always tried doing what's right since he was a kid. One day, Sakurama rescued a kitten from being attacked by crows. However, his father told him that this was a bad thing, since even crows must eat or they will die. All lives are equally precious, so humans should not tip the scales of life because of their presumptions. To Sakurama, his parents were his justice, and they meant everything to him. So he listened to his father and left the poor cat behind. On the day that the floating fortress appeared, Sakurama feared that they would all lose their lives. His parents explained that everything is a gift from God, and the UFO is no different. They assumed that it came to correct the way of the humans, but it wouldn't affect them because they have always lived a righteous life. One night, Sakurama followed his older sister during a run. He just annoyed her, but he was there to make sure that no bad guys would come near her. She tried to lose the little nerd, but he declared that he must protect those that are precious to him. And it doesn't matter how strong the enemy is. His sister pointed out that that's exactly what the Red Keeper says, but they are not allowed to watch the Keepers because of the violence. Sakurama admitted that he couldn't help himself, as he wanted to be just like the Red Keeper when he grew up. His sister used this opportunity to point out that if he likes the Red Keepers so much, this would have to mean that the father he believes in a lot is wrong about them. The idea that his parents could be wrong had never entered his mind before, and we get a look at the poor kitten again. One day, his parents shut off the TV while Sakurama was admiring the Keepers. They blamed the Keepers for the monsters using force because they were the ones trying to solve the conflict with violence. Sakurama convinced himself that his parents could never be wrong, and he decided that he was the wrong one. However, one day Sakurama explains that God descended from heaven. His parents were part of a church that celebrated this moment as their salvation. Sakurama's sister prevented him from joining them, as she told him that he needed to think for himself. A large explosion occurred, and Sakurama was shocked to find that this god had slaughtered everyone in the church. The god assumed that the kids were his followers as well, so he decided to give them some salvation too. Sakurama's sister managed to protect Sakurama, but she was caught under some rubble. The monster prepared to end their lives, so Sakurama wondered if they're all supposed to be equal, does that mean he won't be able to do anything about his parents' death, and will he not be able to protect his sister? Just then, Sakurama remembers how he's supposed to protect what's precious to him. Sakurama doesn't explain further, but simply says that he somehow managed to survive, and he made the decision to join the Rangers and fight. However, he quickly realized that there was no hope there. D gets furious and points out that his boring story was too long. Sakurama wants to know D's name, but Fighter D doesn't tell him, and just warns him that this is his last chance to run away. He points out that he defeated the red panda looking guy, so Sakurama is amazed that he beat Tokita. Tokita is a senior rank, which means he's the Red Squadron's 5th strongest member. D couldn't be more pleased with himself, and Sakurama admits to underestimating him. D agrees and points out that he is a true weapon of war. Sakurama gasses him up by calling him a threat to humanity, so D gets carried away and announces that the mighty Fighter D will be the one to defeat the Rangers. Sakurama takes note of Fighter D's name, but D is furious to have been tricked. Sakurama then reveals that he has a favor to ask, but they detect that someone is approaching. It's Hikiru, and Sakurama comes out to introduce himself as an independent ranger. Hikiru is glad to see a comrade, and Sakurama reveals that he has captured an injured fighter. Sakurama leads him away from the cave though, so Fighter D is shocked that he saved him. Sakurama pretends to get lost, but Hikiru threatens him to remember where the fighter is. Just then, Fighter D reveals himself, and he pretends that he broke free from Sakurama's restraints. Sakurama has no clue why Fighter D is putting up this big act, so he is shocked when he realizes that Fighter D might be trying to help him. Hikiru explains that he is 1 rank lower than a 3rd rank, so D assumes that defeating him will be a piece of cake. D acts like there is a 3rd ranger there, but this is just a distraction so he can land an attack on Hikiru. Hikiru's in a great deal of pain, but D was actually trying to split him in half with his attack. He wasn't able to do so, so D realizes that his body is becoming more brittle. Just then, Hikiru activates his divine artifact, but D thought that divine artifacts were exclusive to Dragon Keepers only. They are, which is why Hikiru must explain that his is just a replica. It's still capable of destroying fighters though, so Fighter D takes off running. He's furious with Suzukiri since she didn't tell him about the replicas. Fighter D is still feeling the pain from the hole in his stomach, but this luckily keeps him from being cut in half by Hikiru's attack. As he dodges more attacks, D once again blames Suzukiri. He stops himself though as he decides that he can't rely on others. He has to overcome this on his own, otherwise he will never be able to win against the Keepers. Sakurama can't believe that D is really planning to fight until all his enemies are defeated, and Hikiru demands that Fighter D come out of hiding. His next attack clears the area, so Hikiru wonders if D got away. Just then, D explains that he would never run, and this is really just a game of hide and seek. He reveals that he was one of the trees, and shockingly takes hold of the divine artifact replica. D declares his victory as he prepares to use the weapon, but the thing just burns his hands as it begins to melt. Hikiru explains that he's only able to wield the weapon because he borrowed power from Blue. He credits his own power to the bond he has with others. He explains that there are a ton of people he trusts, and the power of bonds is what makes humans strong. Fighter D doesn't listen to his speech as he just runs away, but he finds Sakurama and takes him hostage. Hikiru suspects that they might be working together though, and wonders if D used his power to switch their identities. Sakurama begs Hikiru to hand over his weapon, or he fears that Fighter D will take his life. Hikiro can't move forward without knowing if they are working together or not. He comes up with an idea to find out, and the guys are shocked when Hikiro plans to end both their lives. Just then, Sakurama reveals that he called for backup, so Hikiro will only have to be patient. Hikiro realizes that it would look really bad if others found out that he sacrificed the ranger to deal with the fighter. He has no other choice, so he surrenders the artifact and removes the part that activates it. D goes to grab it, but Hikiro reveals that he actually had no intention of handing the weapon over to a monster. Hikiro goes to retrieve the artifact, but he is shocked when D sends his hand right through his body with an attack. D's hand begins to regenerate, so Hikiro realizes that they were not working together and they didn't switch bodies. Just then, he is shocked when Sakurama takes hold of the divine artifact. Surprisingly, Sakurama just uses it to attack Fighter D and sends him off a cliff. Hikiro's relieved that Sakurama saved him, but he doesn't see that Sakurama's hand is regenerating. Sakurama credits the power of their bond for allowing him to defeat Fighter D, and the stupid Hikiro eats it all up. Down below, we see that they actually did switch bodies. The real Sakurama is dressed as Fighter D. He is relieved that their plan went well, but his handless arm is causing a lot of pain. Their plan really did work perfectly, as the disguised Fighter D leaves with the Rangers. A look back to before the confrontation reveals that Sakurama anticipated that they would be found by Hikiro. He knew that Fighter D had no chance of winning against a divine artifact replica, so this crazy guy cut off his own hand. D pointed out that he's not a monster so it won't grow back, but Sakurama said it was nothing compared to the injuries that the monsters have suffered. Fighter D realized just how crazy he was, but Sakurama had a plan. Tricking Hikiro is the only way D can survive, and the best way to do that is by convincing Hikiro that they didn't switch bodies. Once Hikiro is convinced, Sakurama wanted Fighter D to live as him so he could find the answers he couldn't find before. This didn't sit well with Fighter D, so Sakurama feared that he didn't take a drastic enough measure. That wasn't the problem though, as Fighter D explained that he is a monster and Sakurama is a ranger. Fighting is all they can really do. D agreed to Sakurama's plan, but came up with the idea for them to have a match. D said that he would crush the Ranger Force first, but Sakurama declared that he would fix the Ranger Force before that. Elsewhere, Suzukiri is invited to a get-together, and she is told that she can bring Sakurama. The moment is tense for some reason, and she declines, as she has a TV drama she wants to catch up on. Suzukiri is sure that the Pink Keeper didn't actually care about her attendance though, and she knows that Pink Keeper only really cared about Sakurama. The Pink Keeper denies it and tells Suzukiri to behave better if she intends on moving up in rank. Suzukiri mockingly agrees, but thinks about how boring things are. Elsewhere, the real Sakurama wishes D luck as he is counting on him to take his place. Fighter D is still on the helicopter and he just tells Sakurama not to go dying on his own. Fighter D soon finds himself in Sakurama's room. He can tell that he's slightly skinnier than before, and it's because that hole in his stomach took quite a bit out of him. D then admits that he has been having a strange feeling inside of him ever since Sakurama saved him. It turns out that Sakurama did tell him how he was able to survive with his sister that day. They were supposed to die with their parents, but the last generation's Blue Keeper saved them. When he retired, he raised the two siblings like he was their parent. Sakurama looked up to him, so he joined the Rangers, but he discovered that the battle against the monsters was just an act. Sakurama planned to expose the truth by secretly leaking the information, but he was attacked by a mysterious group. Sakurama doesn't know how deeply this goes, and he fears that if he keeps digging, he will cause trouble for his older sister. However, Sakurama is prepared to abandon everything to achieve his goal. In the meantime, he wants Fighter D to take his place. D was upset about his long explanation and just put it simply. Sakurama wants to end the war, so he just needs to defeat all his enemies. Fighter D remembers one of his bosses telling the fighters to take back the planet, so D explains that fighting is all he knows. Sakurama wonders what D intends to do with his freedom after defeating the Rangers, but D is insulted since the answer should be obvious. D can't think of an answer though, and simply decides that he just needs to focus on defeating the Rangers first. Just then, some device is making a lot of noise, and D accidentally breaks it. Sakurama told D that he would eventually have to meet all the people he knows, so he stored all their information in a device in his room. D was supposed to study this information so those close to Sakurama wouldn't become suspicious of him, but D is horrified as the thing is broken now. D begs some maintenance guy to fix it, but he is unsure if he can. The guy agrees to try, so D tells him about a strange noise he has been hearing in his bedroom. He agrees to check it later, but asks Sakurama to hand out some cards to some of the other independent rangers. Someone familiar with Sakurama greets him, but luckily the cards he was given have names and faces on them. This guy's name is Yamato, and D tells him that he would like to go outside. Yamato reminds him that once their training period begins, they are not allowed outside, and they must go back to living their underground life as usual. D is then shocked when he sees the underground place he is now living in, called the White Dragon's Nest. D explains that he wants to meet the keepers, but Yamato reminds him about something else. They are just independent rangers, so their only choice is to win their fights, be the last one standing, and be chosen by one of the 5 squads. Yamato always thought that he would instantly become a keeper and have all the ladies, but Sosei took that dream from him when he became the Red Keeper. The next person to receive a card is Angelica, and Renren gets one soon after. Angelica would rather be alone, but one girl wishes they could all get along. Her name is Angel, and she realizes that the tense environment can't be helped as they are all competitors. The girls bring up something Sakurama said before, so he has to play it off like he knows what they are talking about. Ishikawa is the next to receive his card, but they're still using a picture from when he was younger. Ishikawa is much older now, and considers himself an old man that just doesn't know how to give up. Tsukasa is another guy, and he wants Sakurama to go work out with him. Sakurama gets away from this guy, only to find that the next guy is really hostile. His name is Kai, and Sakurama is told that it's dangerous to be near that guy. A guy named Ijin is pretty aggressive too, and he tells Sakurama not to get too cocky just because he defeated a monster. Ijin then tells Sakurama that he needs to stop spouting nonsense about trying to talk things out with the monsters. While these interactions are unpleasant, seeing how Sakurama is treated makes D understand Sakurama a bit more. D doesn't want to cause unnecessary trouble while looking for a way to take down the keepers, so he decides to fool everyone. Just then, one last person greets Sakurama, and he's shocked to realize that it's his sister, Sasera. D just says that he is busy so he can run off, and he curses Sakurama for not telling him that his sister is a ranger. Just then, D gets fed up with the strange noise and goes to check his closet. He is terrified to find someone inside, and this girl just barely stops herself from attacking him when she realizes that he is Sakurama. D can tell that she is a fighter, and she demands that Sakurama let her out since disguising herself as a surface dweller is exhausting. Just then, Sakurama's sister wonders if something is wrong from outside the door. The fighter girl vows to eliminate all surface dwellers, but explains that she will make a special exception for Sakurama. D begs her to keep quiet and tells Sasera that he's just cleaning up. The girl admits to being a monster, so D wonders what kind of relationship she has with Sakurama. Just then, D reveals to her that he is not Sakurama, and he is actually a fighter just like her. The girl apologizes for her behavior, as she didn't realize that other fighters had survived. She explains that she has been searching for a way to escape, and is glad that help has finally arrived. Sasera knocks on the door again, so the girl thinks they should work as a team to start eliminating rangers one by one. This would be pretty foolish, so D tells her that it's not the right time. He instructs her to hide for the time being, so she heeds his advice. D allows Sasera to enter, and they discuss the ranger exams. They are just simulated fights against lowly fighters. The insult makes the hidden girl make some noise, so D just blames it on some broken pipes in the wall. Sasera brought some apples, so D suggests that they go to the lunchroom to get a knife. Sasera offers to get it herself though, as she wants to speak with Sakurama alone. After she leaves, the hidden girl comes out to wonder when they will attack, as she has been waiting for his signal. She agrees to keep waiting, but explains that she's not very patient. When Sasera returns, she accidentally sends the knife flying into the closet door. The hidden girl wonders if this is an ambush, and explains that the knife grazed her slightly. D quietly apologizes and goes back to speak with Sasera, who reveals that she wants Sakurama to quit the Rangers. This environment isn't suitable for a pacifist like him, and he should live in a place far removed from battles. This kind of talk upsets the hidden girl, so she starts making even more noise. Luckily, Sasera must leave the room to answer her phone. The girl is really upset at how long he is taking, and begins to question if D is really a fighter. D explains that he needs time to figure things out, as he just recently came to the surface. Him just coming to the surface makes the girl realize that he is something called a remnant. She is infuriated by this and attacks him. D thought that they were comrades, but the girl is enraged by the thought. D tries to calm her down by pointing out that this is not the time to be fighting. The girl just gets even more upset as she declares that fighting is all she knows. That's just what a fighter does, and she is proud of it. She has come to realize why D refuses to fight. It turns out that 13 years ago, the fighters were divided. Some of them chose to fight the Dragon Keepers to the very end, while others that she now refers to as remnants refused to fight. She is the only one left of the group that chose to fight, and she doesn't want Fighter D's cowardice spreading to her. D is then the one to get upset, as she has no clue what he had to go through these past 13 years. D tells her that she is right, and decides that they should just go on a rampage. The girl buys his little act, so she agrees to transform back into a surface dweller to make it easier for them. She isn't good at it though, so it will take time. D uses this time to find a box, and when she is done transforming, D chops her head off and puts it in the box. Just then, D hears Sisera returning, so he hides the girl's body in the closet and tells Sisera that he had to slam the door shut because he put too much stuff inside. Sisera wants Sakurama to leave this place with her so they can live together again. Being in the Rangers only puts him in danger, so she wants to protect him. This makes the girl in the box more upset, but D declares that he came to fight. Sisera gets very serious and reveals that the Ranger Force is not as righteous as he thinks. If he truly seeks a righteous world, then he should choose a different path than hers. D declares that he doesn't want to run anymore, and even if the Rangers aren't righteous, he can't just turn a blind eye. D thinks about what the real Sakurama would do in this moment, so he stabs an apple and declares that he came here to fight. The girl in the box is shocked, and Sisera wonders if this would still be his answer, if it meant that he would have to fight her. Afterwards, we learn that Sisera is actually the Pink Keeper, as she talks to her right-hand man. Their conversation is interrupted though, when they notice trouble. Back in the room, D reveals that he regrets letting the others fight for them that day. He has had to be a slave ever since, so he vows to take back their dignity by winning this fight. The girl does not intend on forgiving him though, and just tells him to do whatever he wants. Surprisingly, the girl only wants to know if the real Sakurama is okay. D declares that the moron won't die so easily, and the girl seems happy to hear this. Back with Sisera, we see that she has transformed into the Pink Keeper to stop some guys from messing with the girl. One guy tells the others not to worry though, since the Pink Keeper is just a pretty face for the Dragon Keepers. He ends up being completely wrong, as she knocks all of them out. Her right-hand man then watches as she admires how much her brother has matured since the last time she saw him 3 years ago. Sometime later, D finds himself in a battle. D instructs the other Rangers to get civilians to safety, but he is shocked when they have other plans. They wipe out a bunch of fighters and tell him that he's too naive because it's quicker to just eliminate the monsters. This group infuriates D, so he decides that he will have to eliminate them before he ends the lives of the Keepers. D prepares to take out a fighter, but Kai attacks it first, and the two of them clash. Just then, it is announced that the training for the final exam has ended. D is upset that Kai took his glory by taking out that fighter, but Kai says that he doesn't need it, as he's already ahead of everyone. Back in his room, D promises to get his revenge on Kai. He wonders if X knows anything about the final exam, but she tells him not to speak her name so casually. X is still furious, so she tells him to just go die somewhere. D explains that if they want to defeat the Rangers, the first step will be for him to pass the exam. D has determined that most of the Rangers he has met won't be a problem, but a few of them are pretty powerful. Kai is the worst of all, and D refuses to lose to someone like him. X has come to understand that D will have to get along with them, but she reminds him that he is a monster, and she would be very upset if D's life came to a pathetic end. D declares that he can never forget that he's a monster after all the hardships he has had to endure the past 10 plus years. All surface dwellers are his enemy, and he vows to take them all down. Later, D takes part in the final exam. Participants are divided into 5 different types, and they are associated with the different colored squadrons. D and Kai are the Red Squadron Monster Extermination Specialists, and they are solely focused on offense. D assumes that he will just have to defeat Kai to win, but they are told that they will have to work together to defeat 5 monsters. Monsters will be played by real Rangers, and each of them will have one of the 5 keys of different colors. The participants that are able to take a key and escape the area will earn the right to be scouted by the respective squadron. They will have 30 minutes each day for 3 days to pass. Participants are reminded that teamwork will be vital, and the exam begins. D wants to hide for now because they have 3 days, but Kai wants to search for the monster actor and fight them head on. D thinks about how the problem is that if he gets hit even just once, he will be exposed as a monster. Kai is annoyed by Sakurama because he always just wants to talk things out, so D agrees to go along with Kai's plan to search for their opponent. However, Kai wants them to split up, so D reminds him that the instructor said that they need to work as a team. Kai refuses to work together and becomes really upset. He angrily reveals that he doesn't care about the exam, and he has his eyes set on what's beyond it. Just then, they are found by Suzukiri, who is acting as one of the 5 monsters. She's disappointed that they aren't the yellow team, but she declares that unfortunately for them, she is a fearsome monster that attacks anyone she sees. She states that they have no chance of running away, so instead they better punish her. All the other participants are shocked as they also find that the monster actors are all junior first rank rangers. D says that they shouldn't fight because they aren't from the right squad, but he is shocked when the red monster actor appears out of nowhere. He's well disguised and does a good acting job, but D can tell that it's Tokita. Suzukiri points out that a 2-on-2 would be really bad for the participants, and she wonders what she should do. Kai is just as angry as always and goes to attack her, but she is shockingly run over. The yellow team hopes that they didn't really end her life, but they are shocked when she appears out of nowhere. Suzukiri is disappointed since she wanted to play with Sakurama some more, but she will have to fight the yellow team now. D uses this moment to take off running, and he gains some confidence as he reminds himself that he has already beaten Tokita once before. Kai fights Tokita head on, and he demands that he give him the key. Tokita refuses, so Kai antagonizes him by bringing up the rumors he has heard about Tokita. It is well known that Tokita got beat up by a mere fighter, so Kai calls him the disgrace of the Rangers. Kai's antagonizing backfires as Tokita shows just how strong he is by absolutely destroying Kai. D arrives at the fight, and Tokita explains that even though he is injured, dealing with them is like child's play to him. We then see that the other teams are getting wrecked by the other monster actors, and Tokita tells Sakurama that he is next. Tokita spent some time with Sakurama in an orphanage, so he wants to see how much the kid who always talked about becoming a hero has grown. Kai is in really bad shape, so D decides that he will have to defeat Tokita on his own. This could be very dangerous though, since he can't even take one hit. The only weapon D has is the common weapon that the real Sakurama gave him. All rangers have one, and it's called the Dragon Gadget. D uses its gun form to attack from a distance, but Tokita tells him that he has terrible aim as he fires back. Just then, Kai jumps back into the fight and declares that he won't let the fight end with his defeat. D comes up with an idea and shoots a fire extinguisher to cloud the entire area. D tells Kai that they should withdraw and reorganize, but Kai pushes him away. D tries to tell him that he only got hurt because he charged in all alone, but Kai refuses to work with anyone, especially a weakling like Sakurama. Kai declares that he will win an official ranger position no matter what it takes. We then understand a bit more about what motivates Kai, as he says that becoming a ranked ranger will be the only way for him to eliminate a certain monster. D is shocked as he wonders who this certain monster could be, but his attention turns to Tokita, who's looking for them. D tries to stop Kai from going to fight alone again, but he fails. Just then, D has a memory from when he learned some things about human behavior, and he comes up with an idea. D calls out to Kai, but Kai tells him to just run away by himself and leave him alone. Kai is actually surprised though when D actually runs away while telling him to do whatever he wants and saying that he doesn't care about what happens to him. Kai and Tokita begin fighting again, and Kai declares that he doesn't need Sakurama as he will be fine on his own. This turns out not to be true though, as Tokita instantly takes control of the fight and starts kicking Kai in the face repeatedly. Tokita wonders where all his bravado went as he beats down on Kai, and he declares that it's a shame. He thinks Kai would have been a great addition to the Red Squadron, but he will just have to try again next year. Just then, his attack is interrupted by a crashing truck and one of the other monster actors. Tokita is furious with the girl named Hisui, but she explains that one of Tokita's red guys got in her way, so she was just taking care of him. D then confidently points out that the monster actors need to act like monsters, and points out that they would fight anyone that they come across. Because of this, a fight breaks out between the two monster actors and the red and green teams. Sakurama has the green team spread out so they can surround the monsters, but he realizes that Angel is injured. D assumes that she will be useless, but she shows some determination as she declares that she can't go down without fulfilling her duty first. Just then, D comes up with an idea and asks the others if they know how to draw. The guys have no clue at all, but Angel does. Moments later, D tosses some fire extinguishers in the air, and the green team shoots at them, clouding the area even more. Tokita searches for the participants, but Hisui attacks him by accident. Shortly after, Tokita attacks Hisui and apologizes as he thought that she was one of the participants. Tokita gets a devious smile on his face, and we are shown what's really going on. D asked Angel to draw him a couple pictures, but she didn't think they were very good. Sakurama assured her that they were great, and he stated that she would be better off quitting the Rangers and becoming an artist. D said that her drawings would be really helpful, and we see that he asked her to draw pictures of Tokita and Hisui. D intended to show the monster actors just how scary a real monster can be. To do this, he used the drawings as a blueprint so he could transform into Tokita and Hisui. He then used the transformations to make it seem like they were attacking each other by accident. Just then, the real Tokita accidentally attacks the real Hisui. Tokita blames her for getting in the way, but she becomes furious and attacks him. Hisui says that she already warned him once, but Tokita has no clue what she's talking about. She's tired of listening to his excuses, so she decides that she will just take him out first. She admits to being younger than him, but points out that she is 3 ranks higher. D insists that Kai should follow him into the fight, but Kai's disgusted by the thought. Just then, D completely changes his tone and tells Kai that he can just rest and get out of his way. He says that Kai is injured and he will only end up holding him back. D reminds Kai that he refused to work with anyone, so he turns that against him, and D says that he doesn't want to work with weaklings like Kai. Kai becomes furious, but he's so injured that he can't do anything about it. We then watch as the injured Tokita keeps getting shot, and D mocks him. D keeps firing at him, and Tokita eventually confronts him. Tokita tells him that this is his last chance to beg for help, but D explains that he can't do that because his teammate is useless. D tells Kai to stay back as he's no match for Tokita in his current state. Tokita prepares to land the final blow on Sakurama, but he is shocked when it was just a trap. We then learn that D's plan the entire time was based on what he learned about human nature. He learned that they become more motivated when they are doubted, and he knew that Kai would do the opposite of whatever he said. Because of this, Kai joins the fight, and he works together with Sakurama to land a powerful punch on Tokita. Kai acts like he's just attacking to get some payback, and he points out that one punch won't be enough to end the fight. Just then, Hisui refuses to be forgotten in this fight, and she attacks Tokita herself. D is then in utter shock as he watches her easily destroy both Tokita and Kai. Hisui declares that Sakurama is next, but she credits him for making the fight more exciting. D tries to stop her, but he is shocked when she instantly appears in front of him. Just then, Ishikawa interrupts and declares that he won't give up until he joins the Green Squadron. Angel then shocks everyone when she comes out of nowhere to pin Hisui down. The fight intensifies, and Hisui is glad to see that Angel has gotten more serious. D thanks them and thinks about how he will be able to defeat Tokita for the second time now. Tokita refuses to just let him have his way, but he is stunned when Kai grabs a hold of his leg. Kai reminds him that this is just child's play for Tokita, so he tells Tokita to play along with them. D goes in to end the fight with his final attack, and he strikes Tokita right across the face. Tokita calls him an idiot and points out that headshots don't count. This doesn't bother D as he declares that he will just attack again, but an alarm sounds. All the fights have reached their climax, but everyone stops at the most tense moment because the alarm means that time is up. The first day of the final exam has come to an end. Thanks for watching my recap. Subscribe to the channel to help us get to 700,000 subscribers.